we changed the model from the traditional janitorial model. We don't do it the way all the other companies do it. Anyone that's going out and doing something new for the first time, it's a struggle. Whether that's as a young kid reading in class, it makes you nervous, or then as you get older and you're in high school and you have to stand up in front of the class and give a speech. That's rough. That's scary because you've never done it before, and you think everyone's going to judge you. But what people don't realize is everyone goes through that same process.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great your business is run behind the scenes and your fulfillment. You could have the best cleaners around. If you cannot continually get clients and drive sales, it doesn't matter. That is priority number one.
And the bottom line is, if you're willing to put in the hard work and you're willing to take the time, then you can be successful in almost anything in life.
So what does it really take to build a successful business? Now let's cut through all the noise and really simplify the process for you. In this episode, I got to chat with the president and co-founder of Image One, which is a cleaning franchise. We, of course, talked about how many franchisees they have, startup costs to open up this franchise, and how much money their franchisees are making. But I'm always so curious about what path people took to become successful in business. How do they think? What type of decisions do they make, etc.? So I wanted to know how Tim started off as a teenager cleaning businesses to becoming a master franchisee, which if you don't know what a master franchisee is, you'll learn. And then to then starting his own thing and becoming a franchisor himself with now over 20 franchisees. So it's an interesting story that I think you'll enjoy and learn a lot from. I know I did. And if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory, and you can schedule a free call to see what's available in your area. The link is also in the description below. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show. They say Rome wasn't built in a day, and building your empire doesn't happen overnight. My name is Tarek Johnson, and owning franchises is what helped me go from employee to employer and start building my empire for my family. So this podcast is for you, the empire builders. For those of you who want to build something that stands the test of time. This is for those of you who are crazy enough to believe that you can make the dream in your head come to life. This podcast is all about bringing you real people who are building real empires so you can get inside their mind and heart and get proven strategies and actionable insights that will catapult you to build, grow, and scale your empire. All right, well, welcome to another episode of the Franchise Empire Show. I'm here with Tim Kahn, who is, now what's your official role? I know that you co-founded the company, but what's your official title within the company?
President. President and founder or co-founders, it's fine.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for our conversation. So, a couple of interesting things to me about your story. Number one, your franchise is headquartered in a different state in which you live, and you travel back and forth, which is cool. I think people would find that interesting. So we can chat about that. Number two is that you started out as a franchisee or a master franchisee with a different cleaning company. And then after that agreement finished, then you decided to become a franchisor and start your own thing. So I think that that's really interesting. And I want to talk about that journey and kind of how that occurred, because I like to say that franchising, I think, is a great stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for, I think there's a lot of people that want to own their own business. They're like, should I do a franchise? But, for me, franchising was a stepping stone into what I actually wanted to do, which was to have an online business. So let's start before you became a master. Was that what it was? A master franchisee?
Yeah, so we did a master franchise agreement, but my journey in as an entrepreneur and in the janitorial industry started, 16 years prior to that.
Oh, no way. Okay, so yeah, take us back to that. What was your first entrepreneurial venture?
Yeah, so, well, my first entrepreneurial venture, as a kid, my parents owned their own business, so that's just you have that mindset of being in business for yourself, and parents that are in business, like, hey, if you want money, go out and earn it. That's just the way they are, and that's the way I was with my kids. And I think it gives kids a good foundation then to understand that if you want the nice things, you got to pay for them. And so from a young age, I think probably when I was 10 or 12 years old, I was out pushing the lawnmower around the neighborhood, cutting people's grass for $5, $8, whatever they would give me. And then of course in the fall when the leaves would come down, I'd break their leaves, and in the winter I'd shovel their driveways. And so that was always I always had that entrepreneurial mindset. I wanted to go out and do my own thing. And when I was 14 years old, my parents had a two-story office building where they had their business. It was a multi-tenant building, and they needed someone to clean the building. And I said, this is something I can do. I was in high school at that time. I think it was my spring of my freshman year, and I said, this is something I can do. I can start saving money to buy a car, and have money to go out with my buddies, and if I have the opportunity to date a girl, I need to have money to pay for that. So it was a good opportunity, and so I started cleaning their building. And I did that for a couple of years, and turned 16, bought a car, and then I had the wheels to go any place I wanted to go. So then I started driving around to local strip shopping centers and just walking door to door and cold calling for window washing and that kind of stuff. And so that was how I started growing the business. And walked into a sign shop at the time, and the woman there, it was an independent. She said, "Hey, you need to come to our networking group." And I'm like, "What's a networking group?" I'm just a kid. I have no clue. And she's, "Well,
About how old were you at this time?
16, 17." And so she's like, "Well, it's where a bunch of business people get together that are selling their services, and we exchange leads." And she goes, "I think it would be a great opportunity for you." And so I did that. I went to it, and I met a guy named Steve, who was the a representative for AT&T at the time. And again, this is back in the late 80s. So this wasn't AT&T cell phones. This was AT&T landlines. They were selling business systems, and they were doing home line, the old corded phones in your homes, and that type of stuff. And they used to have stores all over the place. So we started cleaning one of their stores in the Chicago market, and then they kind of felt like dominoes. We ended up doing 7 out of their 10 stores that were in the Chicago market over the next several years. So through high school and then through college, I just continued to grow the business, and I had a lot of opportunities that came my way, and I was able to jump on them. And by the end of college, I had a real business going. It was billing about $35,000 a month, and that was back in 1992. And
In college, 35 grand a month in
yeah,
sales.
yeah. So it's a good business, and it's a lucrative business. It's because it's something that's always needed. And I never in a million years thought that I was going to operate a cleaning business or a franchise cleaning business for the rest of my life, but that's just the path that I went down. And so then fast forward from 1992, which is when I graduated college, and my wife and I got married. In 2001, I got a letter from someone that said they were interested in finding someone to partner up with in the Chicago market that knew the janitorial industry, that they had just bought a master franchise, and they were looking for someone to partner that knew the market. I was like, I want to take a look at this and see what this guy has to
And
offer.
how'd they know you? Did you know them? Were they in your warm
No,
market?
they send out random letters to people in the industry. And for whatever reason, that day when I read the letter, I thought, I'm going to check this out, because you get things like that all the time. People that want to buy your business, people that want to sell you their businesses, mergers, acquisitions. There's all kinds of stuff like that goes on. And but then this particular day, I read it and thought, this is interesting. I want to check it out. And so I partnered with him, and we did a 10-year agreement with a national franchise, and that's where I learned about franchising. So I already had 16, 17 years of the business experience in the cleaning industry. Then you had 10 years in franchising with a master franchise system. And then that's where Image One was born in 2011. And we rebranded, and we changed the model from the traditional janitorial model. We don't do it the way all the other companies do it.
Got it. Cool. So for those people who may not be familiar with what master franchising is, can you just explain that and how that works?
Yeah, so a master franchise system is where the franchisor sells a territory, a large city or a state or maybe a tri-state region, whatever that might be. However, they determine is the right system for them. And then the master franchise then sells the unit franchises. And the unit franchises then answer directly to that master franchise. That's where they go for their training and their support, and they work directly with them. They really don't have a relationship with the franchisor, so to speak. They're still using their brand, they're still using their name, they're operating under their systems and processes, but that's not who their direct person is.
So our team have looked into a few hundred franchises and put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that all make $1 million or more and that have a proven track record of both happy and profitable franchisees. So if you have a net worth of at least $150,000 and you want to see if the territory that you want is still available for any of these franchises, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/check territory. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah. What do you think are some of the pros and cons of master franchising? Because you don't see it often with new franchisors anymore. It seems like it's becoming more of an outdated model.
I think it is. It puts a middleman in. Um, and we all know, everyone wants to cut out the middleman. Look at Amazon. Everyone can just go direct to them. And obviously, there's still other companies that are involved in producing products and services and things. You can never get rid of all the middlemen. But I think with the master unit type agreement, getting that middle level out is better for the franchisee, because it allows them direct access to the franchisor, and it also allows the franchisor to have direct access to the franchisee. So it's good on both sides. The plus of having the master franchise in place is you truly have local support, someone in your market that someone can lean on. So there is a benefit to it, but I think that the benefits of not having it in place far outweigh the benefits of having it in place.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting comment. So, all right, cool. So, interesting story because I'm thinking as you're telling your story, I'm going, okay, you are obviously an entrepreneur, right? And some people debate that franchisees are not really entrepreneurs. I've heard many people say that, which I think is an interesting comment and has some merit to it, actually. Um, and so I'm thinking you went out, started your own thing, and then you got into franchising, but it makes sense that someone had kind of pitched you on joining. I just want to take a step back for a second and just acknowledge because we have a lot of folks that listen that are franchise buyers, but we also have a lot of franchisees that listen as well. And so one of the things that I learned as a more operationally driven individual is that sales and marketing are king.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great your business is run behind the scenes and your fulfillment. You could have the best cleaners around. If you cannot continually get clients and drive sales, it doesn't matter. That is priority number one. And so what I hear is that like your success was not an accident. I mean, you were there knocking on doors,
Yep.
right? Cold calling. And there's a lot of people that maybe had the same idea as you weren't probably willing to do that. When you take yourself back to that time, I mean, I know you were a teenager at that time. Were you nervous? Were you scared? What was going through your head as you're going and doing these things? Were people giving you objections? Did you teach yourself how to overcome and how to sell these people? Like, tell us about that part.
Yeah, it was scary. It makes you nervous. Back in the day, probably doing those first couple of walk-ins, those first cold calls. I was probably sweating. Like literally, probably had to change my shirt. After doing them, and I think that's normal. I don't think that's anyone that's going out and doing something new for the first time. It's a struggle. Whether that's as a young kid reading in class, it makes you nervous. Or then as you get older and you're in high school and you have to stand up in front of the class and give a speech, that's rough. That's scary because you've never done it before. And you think everyone's going to judge you. But what people don't realize is everyone goes through that same process. And it doesn't matter what business it's in. It doesn't matter what you're doing in your life. everyone takes that next step, and it's always scary. And I always tell our franchise owners when they're nervous about going out and doing something, it's like, you know, are you married? Yes. Okay. Well, were you nervous about getting married and taking that first step? Well, of course I was. And I'll ask them, do you own a home? Well, yeah. Well, weren't you nervous? Taking on a mortgage of $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever it is. And they said, well, it was the most money I ever borrowed. It was scary. So the point is, you do things in your life that are scary, but you need to do that to grow as a person. And so I was very fortunate. I learned that at a very young age. But still, when I would go out, when we started franchising, and I would present an FDD to somebody for the first time, or back then it was called the UFOC, but I knew, man, I was sweating bullets. It just made me totally nervous to do this. And the funny thing was, even if I made a mistake, the person I was presenting to had no idea. It didn't matter. But after you do something 3, 4, 5 times, then you've got a comfort level, and then you have the confidence, and you can do it without even thinking twice about it. And even doing podcasts like this, the first couple that I did was like, oh man, what if I say something wrong? What if the host doesn't like me? What if the content they're looking for, we don't match, we don't fit in? And the reality is, it's just a conversation, and it's if you and I can sit here and talk, it doesn't matter whether it's being recorded and going out to your followers, or if it's just you and me having a conversation. And people need to realize that they don't need to be afraid. They don't need to be concerned. Yeah, is it scary to do something new? Is it scary to buy a franchise and get into that world? Absolutely. You're taking a big risk. And if you're not comfortable taking that risk, then don't do it. But there's nothing worse than 10 years from now sitting back and saying, I wish I would have done this, because you can't turn the clock. And that's the scary thing, is if you don't do it, what are you going to miss out on?
It's a good point. It goes back to that phrase, what is it? With regret weighing tons, I think, something like that. Like just a feeling of regret overall. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, because I know that before I opened my first franchise, I had 9 failed businesses, a graveyard of businesses. And, I would look at other people that were building businesses and that were successful, and think that there was something wrong with me, you know? And I think that it's easy on the outside looking in for people to go, oh, Tim never gets scared. Tim never gets nervous. Or, maybe it's different now after so many years of putting the reps in. But Tim, I think there's a lot of people that, and you probably see it, that they never get to crossing the line, crossing over on the other side, because they feel those feelings. They don't know how to handle it, what to do, or just know that they are completely normal,
Right.
right? And that you just act in spite of. So act in spite of fear, act in spite of being nervous, act in spite of feeling like you have no idea if you can do it. And I think it's easy for us who, have been entrepreneurs now, and for a longer period of time, to talk about it and be like, oh yeah, it's no big deal. But there's people that legitimately are sitting there and thinking, I've been wanting to do this for the last 10 years, and that feeling's been holding me back.
Right. Well, and related to that, there's an old Chinese proverb that I absolutely love. At least I think it's a Chinese proverb, and it's something like, the best time to plant an oak tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today.
Boom. Yeah, I
Because
love that.
if you want that shade in your backyard, you have to have the foresight to plant that tree today, so that in 10 years you can enjoy the shade. And if you sit here now and you don't take action, and whether that's with Image One or with any other franchise, or someone that has that entrepreneurial spirit, they want to do something on their own, if they don't take that action, they're never going to have that shade from that oak tree.
Hey, so if you want to figure out if you should buy a franchise and learn the fastest and easiest way to figuring out the best franchise to buy and everything you need to know about the process, then you'll want to go get access to our Franchise Buyers Academy. In our Franchise Buyers Academy, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look into specific franchises and exactly how much money they are making. You'll get simple formulas for finding money-making franchises and a blueprint on how to scale them into a franchise empire that can be sold for a lot of money later on. You'll be able to finally answer the question on, should I buy a franchise? Now you can get access at franchiseempire.com/FBA. Now let's get back to the episode. It's a great point. So let's talk some numbers. So what tell us about number one, how many franchisees you guys have in territories. Number two, what does startup costs look like? And number three, what do you guys show or disclose in your item 19 in terms of like financial performance?
Well, that's a lot of questions. I'm gonna have to remember them all.
I'll run them back to you. Sorry.
Awesome. Okay, so our new FDD, which we just renewed, we've got 20 franchise owners that were in operation last year. So we've had slow, steady growth. We wanted to put all the systems in place, and there's a lot of franchise systems that have crazy out of control growth, which looks really good for them, but it doesn't necessarily, lead back to good support for their franchisees. And so I'd rather go slow and steady and build the franchise owners that we have and really have them have a good, solid business than have crazy uncontrolled growth and not have the success that we want to have or that they want to have. So 20 franchise owners. We've got another one that actually just started operating a few weeks ago, finished up his training, and has already signed 3 accounts, so that's good. Another one that just finished training, that's going to be starting, should be opening in the next 30 days probably, and then another one coming up from Virginia that's coming for training at the end of June. So we'll have 23. But our item 19, we disclose a lot more than what a lot of companies do. I'm 100% committed to transparency. I want everyone to know exactly what those numbers are and how it looks for them. And some of it's, people will say, you know what, those numbers aren't as pretty as what you could present them as. I don't care about presenting pretty numbers. I want to present honest and transparent numbers. And so one of the things that we do is we list all of our franchise owners' billing for every month of the year for all 20 franchise owners. And so what they billed in January, February, March, throughout the entire calendar year last year. And that shows, the ones that are all the way at the high end. The biggest one was billing, I think in December, he was at $162,000 a month. So he's got like almost a $2 million a year business. That's pretty good for cleaning. And then the second one is a little bit behind him, and then the third one, fourth one, then they drop down a little bit. And then we've got a handful that are just part time, and they're doing $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. They do the work themselves. They don't want to have any employees. They're retired from a full time job, and they just want to have something to earn a little bit of extra money and keep them going. But we want to disclose all of that. We want everyone to see exactly what that is. And then we ask our franchise owners to give us the second set of tables that we have is their profitability. And so they calculate what their cost of goods sold are based on the labor that they spend. Because in the service industry, labor is really your cost of goods sold. That's their single largest expense is the payroll for their employees. So they take what their gross billings are and they deduct out what their payroll are for all their accounts. And, some of them have 3 accounts, some have, 95 accounts. Just depends, how big they've grown their business. But they deduct out all their payroll expenses and come up with what their profitability is, their gross profit. Now, there's still other expenses that come out of that because cost of goods sold is the top thing that comes out to get them to their gross profit. And then you've got the cost of, gasoline for your cars and insurance and cell phone bills, all the other things that come out of it. But we present for the new franchise owners, new prospects looking, what that profitability should look like so that they can see at what level of what businesses, that percentage of profit. And then the third table that we present, and I think that this is probably one of I think it's the most powerful one for sure, is month 1 in business. What did that franchise owner bill? Month 2 in business, month 3, all the way for their first 12 months in business. So some franchise owners in the item 19 show that they didn't have any clients in the first or second month, but that's not uncommon. You're out there, you're marketing, you're trying to sign those deals. But the vast majority of them do. Maybe it's one account that's $500 a month, or maybe it's an account that was 10,000. It just depends what they worked on and what signed. So we lay that out. So it's three different charts in the item 19, but really it gives just a ton of information.
Yeah, awesome. And what about startup costs? Around what's the range there?
Startup costs, our franchise fee is 29,750, so super reasonable. It's a home based business, so you don't have a lot of expenses beyond that. All in, you're still under $50,000. The things other than the franchise fee, startup costs, you've got about $5,000 worth of equipment. You've got to get your liability insurance and workers' comp insurance. So for the first year, that's another $3,000 or $4,000. You need to get your business incorporated, and the really tiny things, but $100 here, $100 here, that it all adds up. So when you add everything in to really get started, you're looking at less than $50,000 worth of an investment. But that doesn't mean that you can get started if you have $50,000, because if you're leaving your full-time job and you don't have savings set aside to pay that mortgage and to pay your car payment or your kids' tuition, or whatever else it is that you're on the hook for, you need to make sure you've got cash reserves to live on while you're building up the business, because it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, you're going to generate some revenue in month one, two, or three, but is it going to replace your full-time income? The answer is probably not. It may take you 6 months to replace that, or a year to replace that. It depends what your full-time income is. If someone's making $30,000, yeah, that's easier to place. But if someone's making $200,000 a year, well, it's going to take them some time to get it back up to that level. That doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, it would be nice if it did, but generally it doesn't. Tony Robbins has this phrase where he says, "Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 5."
Yes.
And I think it's a really important point because especially as I look at some of these older we do a we our team does a weekly newsletter for franchises, and we dive into like their item 19 and all their startup costs, and we break it down. We do a video version too. It's pretty cool.
Mhm.
And you look at some of these older franchise systems and some of the sales that they're putting up, and part of it is just nothing can replace time compounded. And things don't to your tree analogy, they don't grow overnight. They don't start bearing fruit overnight. Women are pregnant for 9 months for a reason. So there's this gestation period in building a business that we live in this society and culture of instant gratification, and but sometimes it just takes 3-4 years to get to where you want to be, and that's okay. I think sometimes people let that, and knowing that, hold them back because they're looking for immediate short-term gratification, right?
Right. No, that's very true. And I always tell people, look, if you're looking for a get rich quick scheme, go buy a lottery ticket, because you have a better chance of making that work than having a business work. It's people look at successful business owners, and you shared obviously that you had several business experiences that went wrong. You're not uncommon. That's more typical than not. If someone's going it alone, that's the value of a franchise, because then you've already got systems in place. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You've got it kind of figured out. But someone like you're in good company, because I think it was Hershey, went bankrupt like 10 or 12 times before Hershey chocolate was the success that it is. Yeah, and then there's a lot of companies that are like that, where you look at someone that's super, super experienced and successful, but when you look at their history, success didn't happen overnight. People look at me and they say, "Oh, you're so successful. It's so easy." And I say, "Yep, it was an overnight success. 30 years of hard work, and then overnight it was a success," because that's kind of how it is. And again, the bottom line is, if you're willing to put in the hard work and you're willing to take the time, then you can be successful in almost anything in life.
Yeah. I'm curious what I always ask franchisors specifically, founders is, okay, I'm sure your business model is unique where you allow people to be part-time. A lot of franchisors don't allow that. So definitely I would imagine that's something that's unique about you guys. But if you look at maybe two franchisees that you guys have, that are both full-time and they both want to be successful, they both
Mm.
say, hey, I want to have $1 million business, $1.5 million business, whatever it is. What do you see as the difference between the ones who actually are able to produce the results versus the ones who don't? Outside of time compounding, right? When maybe one person's a year in, one person's 5 years in. What's the difference between those people that are super successful and that are just average?
It's their level of commitment. It's how hard they work and how much they want it. Um, are you a member of a gym
Yeah,
fitness?
yeah.
Okay. So the day you signed up, did you have results just because you signed up?
No, no.
And the guy that goes in once a week may stay physically fit, but that's going to be very different than the guy that's there, 3 to 5 times a week lifting weights. So your results are a direct reflection of the time and the effort that you put in. And the same thing's going to happen in business. You can buy a franchise and you can throw money at it and you can sign the paperwork and you can sit back and wait for the phone to ring. And yeah, the phone's going to ring a little bit. And you're going to have a small business. Or you can be proactive and you can go out and you can work it and you can work hard, like lifting weights in the gym. And over a period of time, you're going to see results. That's the big difference.
What about people who are working hard? And have you ever met someone where they're doing the work, but they're just not seeing the results? What in those situations, what's the advice or what do you see that's happening in those situations?
Yeah, usually if something like that's happening, that there's somewhere there's a breakdown in the system, where they're not following the proper procedures. We have standard operating procedures in place for a reason, um, like all businesses. And so if you follow those, you should be seeing the same success that everybody's having. Maybe there's always going to be the superstar. There's always going to be the person that's going to have a 50% close ratio when the average is 25 or 30. But we don't look at the superstars and say this is what everyone should be, because the reality is not everyone's a superstar. I mean, having grown up in Chicago in the 80s, obviously the Bulls had their major crazy run. So Michael Jordan was someone that I was very familiar with, and I think everybody in the world knows who he is. Not everyone's a Michael Jordan on the court. It's just not a possibility. There's great players, and then there's players that are just beyond great. And I think it's the same thing in business. So you may have two people that go through training together. They learn everything the same, but they have different results. And some of that is because their personality is different, and they're gonna have a different level of success. But other parts of it is their level of commitment. You know, is someone going out and doing 200 to 300 cold calls a week, or are they just sitting there waiting for the phone call to for the phone to ring? And obviously, if they're going out and they're doing those cold calls, they're going to grow a business much faster, much larger than if they're just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point because, you know, you can build and increase your talent and ability over time. What I've learned is that I'm generally not the most talented or gifted in most things. And so I you just compensate through volume, right?
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, if your closing rate to go get new commercial jobs is 25% and the superstar is closing at 50, well, the way you catch him is by doing more presentations, by
Right.
talking to more people. And it's
Yep.
a conversation that recently had with our team where we're in major growth mode and it's just like we just got to put a lot of reps and we'll figure it out. We'll keep working on the skill set and ability overall. And I remember back I used to wrestle. That was my main sport growing up and there was a key period of when I was not very good. My first year at a club team, I went 0-14. or I'm sorry, went 1-14. My one win was from a forfeit. Um, and so
But at least you got one win.
at least I got one.
You don't have to have an asterisk by your name saying it was a forfeit. Forget about
A
that.
win is a win. But I knew when I laid my head to sleep that it was like, oh, no one was there to wrestle me. Okay, that's why I won. But what was interesting is I started wrestling in the off season, and there was a lot of there were a lot of guys that didn't wrestle in the off season. And going into my sophomore year to my junior year in high school, where freshman sophomore year, I had pretty much finished 500. You know, win 25, lose 25. Um, and there's about 40 to 50 matches a season in a high school wrestling season. And so from sophomore to junior year, I just I just went hard. And turns out I had wrestled 106 matches in the off season.
Wow.
So I got 2 seasons in the off season. And what happened was crazy. My junior year, I came out and I started the season 24-0. And my first loss, I lost in overtime, and that put me 24-1. But it was crazy. And at the end of the day, I don't think it was just I was not that great. There were kids that were way better natural wrestlers. They've been wrestling since they were 4 or 5 years old, and I was starting to beat some of those kids because of putting the work in. But there was also a mindset component too, where I would visualize myself winning before I went to bed. I didn't understand the power of visualization at that time, but I think for, people listening and watching, whether franchisee, whatever, is that sometimes you're dealt the cards that you have, and you may just have to put in twice the amount of work
Right.
than your competitor or the person next to you, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. That's. I don't think anyone can say it better than that. I mean, that's really great to see when you put in the extra work, what the results were. Yeah, it's you know your story it reflects on business the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, what's interesting is it's played out with content and our stuff too, is that, like, for a while, our videos didn't get quite as many we just put out a ton of content. Now it's exploding, it's kinda crazy, but, so you were saying before at the beginning that you guys do things differently than a lot of, the other cleaning franchises, so tell us about that. What's different about you guys in the way that you do things?
So the main difference is the training program that we put our franchise owners through. Most of the janitorial franchises that are out there really expect the franchisee to always be in the role of cleaner. A lot of them, they're selling them a job, and that's not what we want to do. We want them to have a business. So we train them in everything. We train them in sales. We train them in operations. We train them in how to hire people and how to fire people. We work with them both in the corporate setting at our office, bring them out in the field to do actual hands-on cleaning with them, and then after that first week of training at our office, which is it's a full week. It's it could be it's at least 40 hours. Sometimes it's 50 or 60 hours because they'll go out with franchise owners in the evening and learn about how they run their crews and the cleaning and so on. But after that, we schedule a week of training in their market. And so one of the business development managers goes to their market and walks with them and cold calls with them and goes to the chamber and joins the chamber with them and gets them into a networking group so they can start doing the things that they need to do to grow their business. So they, Maggie, who operates, or she's running our business development team, she went down to Fort Worth just a few weeks ago. Brand new franchise owner down there that had just finished his training in Chicago right at the end of the year last year. She got down there with him a few weeks ago, and in the week that she was there, they signed 3 deals, which is awesome. I mean, that's huge. I mean, for him to get 3 deals in the week that she's there, that's great. But that way, you can see firsthand what the sales process is. What the objections are, how to overcome those, because you're just shadowing someone that already knows how to do it. And so I think that's really what is the key difference that sets us apart, is that training program, because then we send the same business development manager back there again a month later and spend another week, again in either sales or operations, whichever the franchise owner prefers or is in need of. And the other janitorial franchises don't do that. The other thing that completely sets us apart is we've got a phone room in the office in our Chicago headquarters, and that phone room dials for every franchise owner. They'll set appointments for them, because we know that the telephone is like a 500-pound receiver. It's hard to pick that thing up and make those outbound calls. I don't know why, because people are on the phone all the time. But like we talked about earlier, it's easy just having a conversation. But people think it's scary to call someone to try and introduce them to the service that they want to provide. And they shouldn't be, because when you talk to someone that is not happy with their cleaning and you can provide them a solution that's going to solve their problem, you're making their life better. So you shouldn't be afraid to pick up the phone, but people still are. So we have a phone room that dials and sets those appointments and manages those leads for the franchise owners. So then they've got the appointment set. They just need to go out and run it. And then it's up to them to close the deal. But we're giving them that support. And that's huge. That's probably, I think that's the biggest thing that we hear from our franchise owners is we love the fact that you set the appointments for us. We want more, give us more. We want to continue to grow the business and, get better at their closing and just continue to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Cool. Awesome. Um, well, last question for you is, so the name of this podcast is called the Franchise Empire Show. So when you hear the term or the phrase franchise empire, what does that mean to you from your perspective?
As a franchisor, you're looking at a specific brand, no matter what brand it is. You look at it as an empire. How big do you want to build it? What is it that you'd like to achieve? Are you looking to have one market, or are you looking for global domination? I don't want global domination. That's not what we want. But we do want a good, solid empire. Across the United States. And I think for our franchisees, it's the same thing. They need to determine what is it that they're looking for. What is it that they want to achieve and make it their empire. And that's not just Image One. I think that's every franchise system. The franchisees need to decide, where it is that they want to go. And I guess, I'm going to date myself, but back in the day, before we had GPS, before we could, turn on maps and it would just tell us exactly where to go, we would get out a map and you'd say, all right, this is where I'm at and this is where I want to be. And this is the path that I need to take to get there. Now it's easy. You just jump in the car and you set your GPS and it guides you there, and it tells you when there's traffic, and it tells you when there's police and speed traps. So you know that you need to slow down. It tells you where there's construction to avoid. But back in the day, you didn't have that. And so a franchise system is kind of the roadmap. And it says, all right, this is where you're at today. And if this empire is what you want to build, this franchise empire for you, this is where you want to be in a year, in 3 years, and 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Now we know where you are, where you want to be, and the time frame that you want to get there. Now let's customize that roadmap. And now we're your GPS. And you know what? When you're driving down the road and you miss a turn, what happens? It tells you. It recalculates. It says, either pull a U-turn and go back or turn on the next block. And that's what we as a franchisor do for our franchisees to help them build that empire. We're their GPS. And our franchise owners miss turns. And our franchise owners end up in construction zones. And our franchise owners hit speed bumps or potholes. But we try to work them through that and help them adjust and overcome that. And sometimes they might run out of gas, and we'll run down there and we'll fill up their tank and get them moving again. So that's our role. That's our support, is to help them achieve that goal of whatever that empire that they outline that they want to achieve.
I love that. Awesome. Well, Tim, thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming and telling us about the opportunity and your story. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I love sharing the story. And um, to me, it's more about helping people get to where they want to be than than the success of our particular brand. If someone comes to me and we're not the right brand for them, I'll tell them where they need to go to find the right thing for them. Because to me, that's more important is that they find the right fit. It's got to be the right fit for them, and it's got to be the right fit for us. And there's a lot of times I'll if someone comes in and they start talking about that they really love working with kids, and they that's like their passion. It's like, well, then go and look at an after school program for kids. Don't look at a janitorial franchise. And they say, well, but I don't have the money for that. So it's like, okay, that's fine. Then you use this as a stepping stone, build this business, and in 5 years sell it. And then now you've got the capital to get into that after school program or that swim school or whatever it is. It's a multi-million-dollar investment. And I think that's an important thing to remember is you can use a franchise, whatever it is. It's a vehicle to get you to go where you want to go. And when you get there, it's okay to get rid of that vehicle and get in the new vehicle and then move on.
It's such a great point because I say it all the time. For me, franchising was a means to an end. I again tried to start 9 businesses of my own, and then by that time figured out, all right, if someone gave me the system, I feel confident I can execute on that. Did that, own multiple locations, sold them, and then the whole time I wanted to have an internet business. I wanted to have a YouTube channel, so now I get to do what I wanted to do, but it took, that as a stepping stone. So I think it's a really great point because I think a lot of people get caught up in their mind of going, should I start my own business? Should I buy a franchise? Should I? Like just do something. Just get started and do something. You'll figure it out along the way. Don't be afraid to miss any turns because that's going to
Right.
keep you at the starting line and you won't have made any progress. So
Exactly. Exactly.
cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.